For many Corrie viewers, it's become a bit of a ritual to rush down the paper shop every Tuesday morning, pick up a copy of the latest Inside Soap and find out what their favourite characters will be up to the following week. And my guest today began working on the mag back in the mid-1990s when Norris Cole was still a relatively new character and Jack and Vera were landlord and landlady of the Rover's Return. Earlier this year he stepped down in his role of editor and he's kindly agreed to come on the podcast today to speak about his time at the helm of the magazine. It's Stephen Murphy. Stephen, lovely to have you here today.
Hello, what a lovely intro.
Thank you. That was a bit of a long one, wasn't it? I'll give you a chance to speak now. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well, thank you. Mid-90s sounds like a long time ago now, you say it out loud.
It does. I was just, starting secondary school in mid-90s, just to put that into perspective.
Yeah, we had a terrible situation. I got to a point in the Inside Soap job where people who were working for us hadn't been born when I started working Inside Soap.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, listen, you're right, it's such a huge amount of time to work on the publication. What is it that kept you there so long?
It's the best. I mean, I've always said it's the best job in the world. I've always been a soap fan. I love soaps. The soap industry, the soap sort of press industry particularly, is a really nice industry. It's very, very, it's quite upfront, quite straightforward. It's not what you'd imagine. If you see a journalist on a soap usually,
yeah,
and they're always sort of after a story or whatever, or double crossing or whatever, or writing up a sort of bad version of an interview that was supposed to be a good thing. It's not like that in the soap industry. It's a nice world, and you get to know what's going to happen in soaps for everyone else, and you get to meet people off the telly. It's a lovely job.
Yeah. So why did you decide to leave then?
Well, it's just the way publishing has changed hugely in the last sort of 10 years, particularly. The way that magazines are made is changing. Every company has had to restructure to reflect that, and they came to the point where the offer was there. They needed, you're selling less and less magazines over the years. You need to cut costs, etc. It's a fact of life. So the offer came up really, and I thought the timing just felt right. I'd been there when I left, I'd been there, I think, 4 or 5 days off of 25 years since I first worked on Inside Soap. So it felt quite a nice time to go. I'd also just turned 50. So, there's also a bit of that sort of, well, if I've got one more trick left in me, I better get on with it soon. So it was just that. It just all felt right, actually, for me.
I'm quite.
The magazine, is still in great hands. Most of the people are there, still there. It just, it felt the right decision for me. I absolutely know when it happened. And they talked to me about it. I had no hesitation whatsoever. I barely thought about it, and I mean that in a lovely way. I could happily have done that job for quite another few years. But I was really I thought, yes, I've done my time now.
Oh, you spoke earlier about how magazine publishing has changed over the years.
Yeah.
Back when Inside Soap started, the internet was still very much in its infancy, wasn't it? How have you? What are some of the ways that you've seen the magazine change to adapt with the rising threat of digital media over the years?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting in those terms. I think it's all about what a magazine is and what a magazine can do. And what a website is and what a website can do, or what social media can do. And I think that you just play up those sort of things, everything that I think a magazine can evoke emotion. I think a magazine can be funny. I think a magazine can be visually interesting. All those sort of things that I think the websites struggle a little bit with. I think is kind of what you push. You just always think, because the websites, particularly the kind of soap news websites, because what they get the most clicks for are the straightforward news stories, the spoilers. That tends to be mainly what they do, because their job is to get clicks in the same way that my job was to make a lovely cover and get someone to pick it up in W.H. Smith. So that all that more kind of magazine-y stuff that the websites just don't do as much.
Yeah.
So I think it was just trying to do that and maximise what I do with that, and see what you can add to it. Here's this story. What can we add to this that only we can do? That our knowledge and our insight and the readers' trust in us, our contacts, whatever, our sense of humour. What can we add to this page that will make it fun and interesting? I think was kind of what you do really. There was a time where we just ran on the news stories quite happily.
Yeah.
But then that kind of overtaken. So you just roll with the punches a bit really.
Mm-mm. Yeah, you spoke about your knowledge. I mean, how much knowledge did you, as the editor, need of all the soaps? Did you have to watch them all, or was reading plot summaries enough, or did you want to watch them all?
I watched as much as I physically could. I saw. I saw a bit of everything every week. But it kind of stacks down like it does in the magazine. Coronation Street, Emmerdale, and EastEnders. Generally, every week I'd see everything. And then Neighbours and Home and Away, I'd make sure I saw some. Docs, I'd see Holby and Casualty. If I ever read a story when I was proofreading the magazine and I didn't know what someone looked like or who they were in the story, I had to then watch that show because I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I like to know, so even if I wasn't, say, watching Casualty every week, I had an overview of the plots and knew who all the characters were.
Yeah.
Every episode of everything in the office was watched and notes made on them and, that kind of thing, which were all kind of then thrown back into the magazine. So if someone's got a sort of little observation or whatever, that would get chucked into the melting pot for the magazine. So, yeah, everything was watched. And we kind of had little sort of unofficial, experts, champions for every show. Within the staff. Yeah. Who was the one you would go to if you had a neighbour's question? You just, you stick it straight to Sarah Ellis.
Yeah.
That's kind of so everyone. So there was an expertise with everyone within the team because everyone can be an absolute expert in everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a favourite soap? Did it change over the years?
It does actually. I mean, it's a very broad question considering the job that I've done for 25 years. It's changed over the years. There's things like EastEnders and Neighbours. There's something about having watched something from the very first episode. There's something about that that gives you a certain investment in it beyond what you have, I think, for other things.
Yeah.
My interesting thing always would be because I was the only soap journalist who never saw them in advance. So I never had time, so I kind of watched them as they went out, or even watched them, after, or often catching up on the weekends. And my thing would always used to be, when I sat down and went, I've got a couple of hours, I'll do some soaps, is almost like instinctively you'd just go, Corrie, actually, I want to see Corrie.
Yeah.
You're kind of, something would just take you to the one that you wanted, to your favourite one at that point. And I think, we all know that they've had their little ebbs and flows over the years. But I do think, it's really hard to say, actually. I was going to say, I think Corrie overall might be my favourite over the years. But also, I've got a huge love for EastEnders. There's been some cracking years, some unbeatable years of Emmerdale, some amazing soap.
Yeah, but that's been doing really well the last few years, hasn't it, Emmerdale? It's won quite a few awards in the past, 5 years or so.
Yeah, well, the first Best Soap Award it won was at the Inside Soap Awards in, you're testing me now, possibly 2016, maybe? And that was after all the, I don't know how familiar I was with Emmerdale, all the Cameron stuff and the Woolpack Cellar and the Siege and all of that kind of thing. They had a big week with a big storm and everything, and it won then, and that was where the tide started to turn, I think, a bit with Emmerdale.
Yeah.
Cool. I think also Emmerdale, interesting enough, started to get fans in inverted commas, in a way that I don't think it had before. I think EastEnders always had them and Coronation Street always had them, but I don't think Emmerdale had fans as such. I think viewers who very much liked it. I think a lot of that is down to Danny Miller and that Aaron story. There's plots that seem to engage a really intense sort of love. And I think Emmerdale started having fans around that time in a way that the other soaps did, and maybe it didn't for whatever reason, I don't know.
That's really interesting. So I wanted to go back, earlier we were talking about competition from the digital media, but in the past year or so I've been kind of getting some old copies of the old Coronation Street magazine that came out in the late 90s. Do you remember much about that, and whether that was ever kind of competition for what the content you were pushing in Inside Soap?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't think it was, because, I mean, in that, there was only us then, and there was only us, and the Coronation Street magazine. It was a Brookside magazine at one point that we made, actually, for a couple of years. But yeah, I think I remember I knew the editor of it, actually, back in the day. And yeah, I think we just thought it was a nice thing, and they just thought it was a nice thing, and I don't think there was ever any, they get something, because we don't. Also, they were monthly, and I think possibly that time we were fortnightly, so we were a bit more, I think they were a bit less storyline driven, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
Because of this sort of, because, you know, you can't really be storyline for whole months, you've got to be a bit more general. So I do remember it well.
So I wanted to also go back to talk about like when you first started at the magazine. Do you remember what some of the earliest things you wrote for the mag were, and like how you got your job there?
I got my job there. My first magazine job was at DC Thompson's in Dundee, where I worked on the teen titles, Shout magazine, which is still going actually, amazingly, 30 years old or whatever. I worked on that, doing pop and TV. I saw more 17 concerts than a man really has to, I think, in his life, and did all those kind of sub-take that bands like Bad Boys Inc. and Worlds Apart and Goose and all these sort of weird sort of bands. I had about 4 hits. Got to know all of them very well. So I did a lot of that, but a lot of my job was Aussie soaps at the time. They were still, I mean, this was 90, oh God, now you test me. This would be 1992, I think.
Yeah.
1993 maybe. So it was very much, you know, the Aussie soaps were still very, very big. I mean, it wasn't quite your glory days, Scott and Charlene. It was more your kind of, let me think, so your Cosy Willis and your Rick Alessi and your possibly, I think the Kennedys came in when I was there as well. And Lou and Cheryl, it was all that kind of era. So it was almost like, I would call it, when I write my Neighbours book, I'll call that third wave. It was third wave of Neighbours. So I was doing a lot of Aussie stuff. Sorry, this is my long story going short.
No, that's fascinating. I don't know who you're talking about, having never seen the Aussie soaps, so you keep going, it's fine.
I'm sure someone listening.
Definitely.
Sure someone will appreciate it.
I'm sure. I know we've got some Neighbours and Home and Away listeners, so you keep going.
Anyway, so the point was, I kind of wanted to move on from that, and I was doing a photo shoot at Grange Hill, which at the time was at Elstree, where EastEnders is the same lot as EastEnders.
Yeah.
And the photographer I was using also worked a lot on Inside Soap. And he said to me, you know, they were monthly at that point. He said, you know they're going fortnightly, don't you? And I don't think he was supposed to tell anyone that. I think it was in secret. Bless Tim Roney for finding me a job. Thank you, Tim Roney. He's a wonderful man. So I thought, so I immediately bombarded them with stuff. And I was down when I worked in Dundee, I used to come down to London to do shoots and stuff, maybe a week every couple of months. So next time I was down for a week, they said, come in the office. So I came in, had a bit of a chat. And then I wrote an Aussie Soap special for them, more or less from cover to cover, myself.
Wow.
And then a few months after that, so still I had another job. I had to do it all in secret. It was all very cloak and dagger. And then a few months later, they rang me up because someone was going to Australia, because the company was Australian, and they had a vacancy and wanted me to take it. So that was how I got there. So it's a very long story. What was the question again?
It was partly that, and then what did you what was it like first starting there? What sort of stuff did they get you writing first?
So the first thing I ever wrote was a piece about soap bitches, I seem to remember.
Classic.
Single page feature, possibly because Cindy Beale was leaving EastEnders, possibly, 96. No, she wasn't. Was she back in it again? I can't remember. And I think I did a sort of 5 best soap bitches type thing. Yeah. I think that was the first thing. I was trying to think, actually, preparing for this. I can't remember the first interview I ever did. Oh, I do. It was Brookside. Yeah. I think I did Diane... Oh, no, what's her name? Katie Rogers. Diane Burke. I think that was my first ever Inside Soap interview. It was a Brookside one. Yeah. So I was doing like general features like the sort of bitch type thing, and I was doing interviews, storyline interviews and chats with people, pretty much straight away. And doing Aussie stuff, which at that point was all done by fax, believe it or not, if anyone remembers what a fax machine was. So it's, you'd send it off, and of course you wouldn't get any replies the next morning. So everything was sort of done back and forward sort of by fax to Australia. So I looked after all the Australian stuff, along with Jason Herbison, who was our Australian correspondent out there, who is now the executive producer of Neighbours and has been for several years. Yeah. He worked for Inside Soap for quite a few. He was one of the longest standing contributors, actually. Wow. Was Jason. So then just, went on, just doing, we all did a bit. It's a bit like now, everyone did a bit of everything. So, you sort of covered off all the soaps, and then as the new that started, you were doing it in a bit of general telly as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Going to launches and stuff like that.
Cool. So I remember 1996 not being like a vintage year for Corrie, and it was just after that we had Brian Park come into the show, and he really shook things up by acting a load of characters and stuff. Do you remember that change being a big deal at Inside Soap when he came along?
I do. It's really funny actually, because since lockdown last year, we've been working from home since then, bar the odd day here and there. Got to go in the office, and I was working from home. So I got in the habit of slipping on classic Coronation Street in the afternoon, just in the background while I was working, or sort of maybe watching it. And what was interesting, it went right through that period. Yeah. Because last year, when lockdown happened, it was just before that. It was kind of Derek and the Gnomes and all those sort of ones.
Yeah, that's right.
Sort of stories. And then the Brian Park stuff started, and then and now actually we're just coming out the other end of it. And Brian Park's gone, but he's very much sort of reset the format of the show.
It does. It feels different. Because I've been keeping up with it as well, and you can really feel the change from the old to the new.
Yeah, so I remember it was quite an exciting time at Inside Soap, just because there was a lot to talk about. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of new characters to interview. There was also a lot of press about it.
Battersby's coming in. That's a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah, Battersby's and all of that kind of thing. And that that one of the biggest things in Inside Soap was, if it gets in the papers, get it on the cover. Yeah. Because as soon as there's a bit of a scandal or something about something, or something makes a bit of headline, and there's a bit of noise about it, it would translate into sales for us. Because I think a lot of our readers back then maybe wouldn't buy every issue. But if there was something particularly that was gripping them, they'd maybe buy it for a few weeks. So there was a lot of those floating readers, and you could always get those in. So that was great for us, because it made a lot of noise in the press. Yeah. Because obviously there was a load of axings, and there was a load of new people coming. As you say, there was the Battersbys. There was things like Adam Rickett, who I did one of his first interviews, I think, actually. Yeah. Up at Granada many years ago. So yeah, there was just a lot to talk about. So it was good. We always used to love it when new producers come in, because we just thought, great news, news is going to happen, things are going to happen. So it was always, so new producers is always good, because there's just a lot to write about.
Yeah, of course. So two decades on from this, and although the ratings are nowhere near what they were back in the day, the soaps are still among the programmes pulling in the most viewers. So what would you say is their enduring appeal?
It's human nature. It's looking in through someone's window and wondering what's going on, isn't it? Yeah. I think, and nosiness. And I kind of like about soaps that, as the viewer, you know everything, and the people on screen don't. So you're a bit, you're kind of over everything. And I think that a lot of it is about the secrets being and the information being passed around, and it's quite nice for the viewer to know it. I think it's habitual. I think it's the familiarity of it. I think, it's lovely to sit down and it all to be familiar. Yeah. And I don't mean it disrespectfully, but easy. Sometimes you watch a new thing on Netflix or whatever, and you're just like, it's really hard. Who's he? Who's she? What's this?
I'm terrible with that. I know exactly what you mean.
so I think just the ease of soaps and the familiarity of it, and I think people find it quite comforting. I think that we discovered that during lockdown. I think that familiarity is quite important. It gives us a real link to, I think, it's something that we feel part of. Yeah. I think that's it, and also just the fact they're really bloody good.
They are. They just are bloody good. You're right.
I did a year in Australia. Yeah. And I edited Australian Inside Soap, because no matter what I do in the world, I just edit Inside Soap. That's all I do. So I edited, and I was doing that. Oddly enough, wasn't Neighbours at Home and Away. That was all Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful and Days of Our Lives. Yeah. Which are all crackers and terrible. And just people stand in rooms talking to themselves in like 8-minute scenes. It was just like, oh God, our soaps are so good. I used to get people to record them on VHS. A lovely girl called Claire Brand, who worked there, used to record them on VHS and post them to me. Oh. I tell you what, if there's a big episode on, she'd send it me. No internet then. Well, there was internet. Not enough. Certainly no streaming.
Yeah. No, I lived abroad in France for a year once, and it was the same for me. I had to try and find my various ways of catching up on Coronation Street without actually being able to watch it. It was terrible. So, what's your take been on the increasing number of episodes that soaps have had over the years? I mean, it's been good that you've had more to write about, or is it added to your workload too much?
Yeah, I mean, there is that. I'm not, don't want to bite the hand that feeds them, but I'm not convinced anyone needs 6 episodes a week of anything, to be honest. I think 5 is fine. But I can understand why they're doing it. I think the temptation with 6 episodes is it needs too much plot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think possibly it's all become a little bit plot heavy. You know, I would love it to take, you know, a 10% step back in terms of plot and just have a bit more character or a bit more silly in there.
Yeah.
I think it's my personal take on it. Just a little, because sometimes you'll watch a sort of, you know, you'll just watch a merry episode, you know, say it and just go, this is great. Just get a little bit more of this.
Yeah.
You know, I love everything else. I love all the drama. You know, I absolutely loved the Leanne and Oliver story last year. You know, I'm looking forward to all the Super Soap Week stuff. It was amazing, but I would just like a little bit more of that stuff, you know, that Corrie's so good at. I think I'm talking specifically about Corrie now. Just a tiny bit less plot, but you know, I think I quite like the. You know, the thing I was going to talk about. You were going to mention. We were going to talk about box sets and all of that. And I think the thing that's really important for soaps is that appointment of view, is that 7:30. And I quite like the symmetry now of the 3 episodes on the 3 nights. The 2 episodes over the 3 nights. I quite like the kind of structure of that because I think that really works for people. But yeah, I think I can understand why they did it. What's interesting actually is watching the classic stuff back, and how much of that is filmed on location.
Yeah, I know. Like loads more, isn't there?
Any kind of guest part houses or whatever are all real houses.
Yeah.
Or like you know, it's not, you know, all we ever get is that kind of horrible hotel that set they've got now. You know, on current Corrie where everyone seems to go for anything. But you know, everything like that is real, and actually. To me, it makes the show feel more real in a little bit. I suddenly realised actually it feels a bit stagier now, the whole production. I think because everything happens up that ginnel, you know, or in that hotel or whatever, and I realised it gave it a sense of a bigger world. And I think just felt it breathed a bit better. Yeah. Because you know like if you shoot in a house on location. Inside, the lighting feels different than it does in the studio. Yeah. So it just feels. I just think it gave it more texture, and I think made it more interesting. In a lot of ways, I think with that. I've completely lost my thread again.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, since they've had all the set expansion for Coronation Street, they moved to Media City. They built the Victoria Street and everything. There's been less and less reason for them to go out, isn't it? But I see what you mean. Although I guess in the last year and a half or so, they've not been allowed to go outside.
I mean, to be fair to Corrie, I think before the pandemic, I think they actually did more location than most. You know, certainly more. You know, Emmerdale very rarely, you know, step out on location, and EastEnders, you know, do occasionally. But no, I think Corrie actually did a bit more than most. But it's funny to see how it all settled down, isn't it? Because they've all now worked out an entirely new production. You know, all the soaps, and it's how much is it going to go back to how it was?
I know. I'm fascinated to find out. Yeah.
So it's tremendous to see how it all kind of settles down in the next year or two, I think.
Yeah. What did you think about the different ways that the various soaps responded to the pandemic?
I mean, I think it was pretty amazing. You know, to keep them on air, I think was pretty amazing. You know, you kind of knew that ITV would pull out all the stops to do it because, you know, the ad revenue on the soaps is a big win for them. So you know they would do what they could to keep them on. And I think they did well. You know, I think you kind of got used to it. Yeah. And then it was weird if you went on YouTube or watched Classic Corrie and you saw a scene where people were close together. Or,
I know.
Or, you know, fighting or whatever. Because something, you know, felt a bit odd because you got so used to it kind of being how it was. And I think they come up with some bits of quite inventive, fun things to do. But I'm glad it's relaxing and it all feels a bit more natural now. Yeah. But I think you know, to keep them on and to and also just to be able to tell the stories. You know, it completely changed how you could write a plot, and to be able to keep that going and keep it good and entertaining, I think is quite amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree. They did them fantastic there. So something else that's been affected by the pandemic, of course, has been all the awards ceremonies, including the Inside Soap Awards. So tell me a bit about the importance of that for your magazine and some of the organisation that's involved putting it all together every year.
I mean, I've always it's really important because it gives the readers a chance to kind of, have their say in what and reward the people they think are great. I always kind of liked Untitled Chapter because I always found our results were a bit more interesting than a lot of the other shows. I think because the reach of the voting didn't go quite as broadly. I think oddly, I think it was very much went to soap viewers. So I just felt the results were always interesting. I was really sort of proud that we were the first one to kind of give the best soap award to Emmerdale. I think done some really good stuff over the years. It's to be honest, to organise it, it's just it's like a wedding, right? Yeah. So organise a wedding. There is months and months and months of mithering and talking and sorting things out, and the most minutiae of it is discussed and sorted and done. But by the time that event starts, I could talk you through every canopy, everything, every timing, everything, every video clip. I could run you through. I could talk you through the whole night. You didn't have to go. Exactly who was coming and all of that. And then it's 6 o'clock. Celebs start to arrive, and the next thing you know, it's 2:30 in the morning, and you're around the piano in a hotel bar, and it's like, what happened? It just goes by an absolute flash. Yeah. And I have no memory. In my memory, they're all one thing now. Yeah. One great big fever dream I've had in my memory. The only way I can tell what year is because I can normally remember what venue things happened in, because we change venues every year, or every couple of years, so I can at least vaguely identify when it might have been. But it's great fun. It's always been a really nice one because the acts have always liked to come because it's quite a relaxed one. Yeah. It's a little, it's quite a short ceremony. It's very boozy, and the actors kind of know that basically by 9 o'clock, 9:15, the work's done. Yeah. They do all the press is done beforehand. So once they've done the press, then we have the ceremony, and then they have a lovely time. It's not that big, it's about 250 people, 50 people, so it's quite small and manageable and nice and friendly and. And it's just good fun, and the soap acts are great fun when they're off the leash, when they've come down to London and got a hotel room for the night. They're all really good fun. So it's lovely, and it's the one chance you actually get to sit and kind of chat with people, in a much more sort of relaxed way and a kind of off the record way. So it's kind of nice from that point of view, and also another big reason we always used to do it is because it gets you so much goodwill. Because you say, can we interview so-and-so? And so-and-so say, I had a lovely time with them that they're doing. That's lovely. Of course I'll go on the phone to them. Of course I'll do that photo shoot. Yeah. So it's really good for relationship building from that point of view. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, really. So it was very sad not to do it last year, It's because then that was my last one last year. Yeah. It's quite kind of sad that I didn't get to do a final one, but never mind. You can't have everything in life, can you?
Did you ever used to leave to let the results of the awards? Did it affect how much coverage you would give various soaps? Because EastEnders won Best Soap loads of times, didn't it? Did that mean that you think your viewers, your readers, are more into EastEnders, so you put more EastEnders stuff in the mag?
Yeah, there was an interesting. This is a really interesting point, and if I had the answer to this, I'd be a millionaire because I'd actually be selling 8 million copies. I've endless hours of this. It's really interesting of what makes someone buy a magazine. What makes them buy it? Is there a show that people are, as I said before about fans in vertical, a bit more fanish of? Is there a show that appeals more to a demographic who might then buy a magazine? Is it because they're younger? Is it because they're older? There's lots of interesting stuff, and eventually you go round in circles and kind of realise there might not be any rhyme or reason to it. There was a time where, because we used to get a lot of criticism for it, where it was EastEnders because, that was what sold. All through that kind of mid-2000s. Yeah. All through your kind of, your sort of Mitchell sisters and, your kind of, there was a lot of those kind of years. You just couldn't, and all the other, it wasn't just this, all the other magazines were the same. There was a time no one did an Emmerdale cover for years at one point, and then it all kind of switches around again. So it's very interesting what makes someone buy it, and that's that we spent hours debating it. But the award results are interesting, particularly the things that maybe you don't think as much about, like maybe we don't spend as much time mithering over the Aussie soaps and Doctors or whatever, and how much coverage they should have compared to maybe Casualty or Holby, and that's stuff like that's often quite interesting. Yeah. sort of looking at the results of that, going, oh, that's interesting, actually. That's done really well. That's not done as well as we thought, that kind of thing. So, it's a useful barometer for all your instincts, just to check your instincts are right or to slightly tweak your instincts.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing about like the behind the scenes stuff on the magazine, because my wife, who also co-hosts this podcast, is a magazine editor as well, and she does a monthly magazine, and it's already very hectic for her at the end of each month. But a weekly magazine, I can't imagine how pressurised that must be. Can you give me a bit of an idea about what the schedule was like for you, what you had to do to make sure every Tuesday, without fail, that mag was on the shelves?
Get it to press by Friday lunchtime is what you had to do. So it was a race. It was a race through the week. It's quite a nice schedule actually, because you start on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, and prints in 2 sections for various boring printer reasons. So half of it goes on Thursday night, and then half of it goes on Friday lunchtime. So it's quite nice, because at least you got a little breather on Friday afternoon. And you can kind of gird your loins and start again. But it's just the thing of keeping on top of it. It's the thing, if you drop the ball one day during the week, you absolutely suffer at the end of it. So it's just a matter of really, really being on the ball. I mean, it's 100 pages a week. It's a lot of it. There's a lot of words in an issue of Inside Soap. A lot of words. So at the time while you're making this one, you're also planning the next one, checking the stuff, because you can't just stop and then go, what's in the next one? You've got to be getting all that in place, getting interviews in place. You're also doing anything longer term. You're also projects like Inside Soap Awards, if you've got a special or a supplement or whatever, all of those kind of have to run currently. You've also got really, really boring company stuff that you have to do, because you work in a big company, sort of boring stuff, things like invoices that people getting paid, little things like that. So it's just a constant kind of thing. It's a bit like soaps themselves. It's just a great big production line, but it's a really good, you're making a magazine about soaps, it's fun.
Were there ever any times when you almost didn't make it or anything? Or
many. Many. No, we've always got there in the end. Never. There's an old phrase. It's a phrase in magazines. Never gone to press with a blank page yet. And so far, even since I've been away, it's never gone to press with a blank page yet. It's gone to press with some very hastily put together pages. Which might not necessarily all be entirely spelled correctly, but it's never gone to press. So you get, it's just difficult, because sometimes something will drop, right at the last minute. Drop as in Corrie Street will lose 2 episodes that you didn't know about, so that stuff's not, so that all has to be changed, or some news will come up that you just can't ignore. So you've kind of got to wrestle about, or someone phones for interview at 3 o'clock on a Thursday, and that section goes to press at 6 o'clock on a Thursday. So it's just, it's a lot. But the thing is, it's got really, as I said, it's a lovely job. It's a lovely place at Inside Soap. And a lot of people there have worked there quite a long time. So everyone on Inside Soap is really good at making Inside Soap. That's the one thing they're very, very good at. So everyone kind of goes, right, gird your loins, do it, and gets on with it. But it's good fun. But I'm not saying it's all giggles and laughs. It's hard work. It's wearing down work. I mean, I worked out, I think I did something like 970 issues, I think.
Wow.
Over the years. And at the minute, I'm just basically having a really nice rest since August.
I bet part of you must have thought, I'll make it to 1,000.
Yeah, no, I hadn't worked it out before. That's the thing. I only sort of worked it out. I only worked it out kind of as part of my leaving speech. And I went, oh. The last 30 weeks I could have done that. You can't do this. I got 25 years more or less to do.
That's pretty incredible, that is. So I wanted to talk a bit about spoilers a little bit, because obviously Tuesday mornings, that's the day when soap viewers get to find out what's happening with their favourite characters the next week. And then you get people like me and the podcast who do not like spoilers at all. We want to watch it fresh the first time. Do you think there's ever such a thing as too much spoilers?
I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of spoilers. I've made my living out of it for 20 odd years. I think they're really useful. I think the trick is to tell people how it starts and never tell them how it ends. The rule in Inside Soap is every feature ends on a question. Always. So it's just to do that. I often think there's there's so much noise out there, I think, in the sort of world that I think the soaps need to constantly tell people to keep watching them, I think, is the other thing. I think you need to say, we once it's interesting over the years, because we're talking about the episodes going up over the years, because when I started, say, 96, well, there's 3 Corries.
Yeah.
Three Corries,
That's
3
right.
Emmerdales, and 3 EastEnders, I think. Then, and I, and it's been interesting over the years because, we would do research in the magazine, we'd do like focus groups where we'd sit in with readers and talk about, the magazine and the soaps and everything. And what we found increasingly was that people were actually using Inside Soap to catch up if they missed something, but also to tell them what day they had to watch. I can miss it tonight because she doesn't have the baby till Wednesday. They were very much using it to plan because they were getting to the point where physically in their lives they couldn't watch all of them.
Yeah.
And this is before, you had kind of, set top recording boxes and streaming and all of that kind of thing. This is more your more sort of linear TX. So they would, they would just, they would use it to plan which one to watch. So I think from that point of view, the soaps realised they had to keep telling people when things happened to watch them. But yeah, we always sort of work, we always work with the soaps and just try. So we've got enough to make it sound exciting and people want to tune in, but we don't spoil it for people. But it's interesting because things that I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and I would never read anything and in any of the previews anything in Inside Soap about Doctor Who. It could have said, I was the editor, that piece could have said anything, any bad words in there, I wouldn't have known it sent it to press because I refused to read it. Because I'm like, I watched so much telly where I knew exactly what was going to happen. So I do get the non-spoilers thing. I do understand it.
Was there ever a time when like Corrie was on and you were genuinely surprised by what happened because ITV hadn't told you?
No, with Corrie. Oh yeah, the live. I don't think we knew about the live where Kylie killed Callum.
Yeah.
I don't think we knew about that. Because I remember watching it because we sadly we got some drinks and some snacks and all watched it in the office on the big telly.
Yeah.
And I think we kept expecting to jump up again. I seem to remember.
I can't remember going into that whether we knew that Sean was leaving the show or not. Sean Ward. I can't remember.
I remember having a long conversation because they were absolutely adamant that they didn't want any allusion or any phrase vaguely towards death on any cover lines or headlines or anything, because I had to change my headline on the cover, I remember, because I checked it with Alison Sinclair as the head press of Corrie, who's lovely and a wonderful lady, but she scares the hell out of me. So I checked with her and she went, I think that's a little bit. I went, okay, we'll change it. So I think that was a genuine shock.
Yeah.
I mean, generally we sort of know because we work a week in advance and then the spoilers are a week in advance. We're 2 weeks on.
Yeah, I guess
by the time something comes out in a lot of ways. So generally we know. I mean, there's been other examples. I think the Emmerdale Live we maybe didn't know entirely. But there's not that much, because for the machine to work, they do have to tell, and there's a sort of quite a circle of trust among the the soap press industry. There's a little sort of circle of trust that are test with things. There's a second circle of not so trust. But so that's kind of how it works. But generally we kind of know everything, because then it just keeps everything, keeps the wheels moving.
Makes sense. Cool. So before we finish, I wanted to talk a bit about Corrie specifically and your preferences. So who have been some of your favourite Corrie characters over the years?
I think my favourite is Deirdre, actually, who I miss so much. I was just thinking how much I miss her because I watched a couple of classic Corries this week. I have in my room, my little office room now where I work, I've got a big picture, a photo shoot that we did, I think, for Inside Soap's 25th anniversary of Anne Bride, which has pride of place on my wall, and I never got to meet her, and that's my one regret of my stellar glittering career, that I never got to meet Annie. So I'd love to, but maybe it's wonderful that I didn't. Maybe that's, I don't know, but she's my favourite character. I really love Steve McDonald as well. I think possibly because I think we're about the same age.
Yeah.
So I think possibly, I think there was some mirroring of kind of maybe experiences and stuff. And I just think Simon Gregson's brilliant and so funny. And I love the fact he's such an utter coward.
Yeah.
It never fails to amuse me. And everything bad that ever happened is because he just wouldn't feel, because he's scared of women fundamentally. And everything that's ever happened to him is because of that. And it never gets old for me. I love it.
I think back in the olden days, he was a bit braver. He was a bit more of a Jack the Lad sort of character. But I think after everything started going wrong for him, I think you're right. He's just given up on life.
Decided it's not worth arguing back.
Yeah. The other one I wanted to ask is, you said you didn't meet Anne Kirkbride, but what are some stories you've got from some of the the nicest or funniest or whatever Coronation Street cast members that you have had a chance to chat to?
I've had some nice experiences. I went to Amsterdam when Roy and Haley went there.
Oh, lovely.
With Julie Hesmanhouse, who is the loveliest lady in the entire world. Is Julie, I adore her. And David Nielsen went out to Amsterdam for a couple of days when they were filming, which was lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And my best trip ever, my best jolly ever I got in my whole career was I went out to South Africa when they were doing the Out of Africa video. Video. What year is this? DVD, I think. I don't think it came out on VHS. We did that with Jenny McAlpine and Wendy Peters and Andy Wymant and little Sam Aston, who was little then. And so we went out there for about 5 days, which was, I mean, the biggest blag of my life. I think I worked in inverted commas, as in possibly did some interviews, possibly for about an hour and a half of that entire 5 days. Yeah. And sort of sat in the sunshine and we're on this lovely safari ranch. No, you don't call it a ranch, do you? I can't remember what you call it. Safari thing, anyway. And that was lovely. That was with Gavin Blythe, who I think was the story editor then, who was producing this DVD, who then went on to produce Emmerdale, brilliantly.
Oh, right, yeah.
Lovely Gavin, who passed away and is no longer with us. I very much miss him. He was a smashing fella. I first met him in Amsterdam, actually. He was a journalist before he moved into storylining it. Yeah. In fact, he was journalist then, a PR then, and storylining it. But so anyway, sorry, I'm digressing. But I'll tell you who was amazing. Our last awards we had in 2019. Maureen Lipman had won Best Newcomer, which she just thought was the funniest thing. Yeah, I remember that. I remember. I think she thought it was so ludicrous she had to come, basically. And she was absolutely brilliant. She outlived a lot of the Hollyoaks cast sat in that bar. She sat there quite happily, ordered her own champagne because she weren't having that Prosecco we were serving. Tell you that, and she was just lovely, chatting with everyone. She was so much fun, so lovely. I was trying to think. We had very privileged that we had one of the first awards, second one I think possibly. We had Bill Charmy and Liz Dawn there. Oh, great! Who were just wonderful, so humble and gracious and funny and nice, and they were such lovely. I'll cherish that. That was I felt it was such a wonderful privilege to give them an award. It really did. Felt like such an honour. Oh. They were amazing.
Did you ever get starstruck with anyone? Even back in the early days, I suppose more.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I was a little bit with Bill and Liz. I really was a little bit. But you sort of just kind of have to get on with it. Yeah. because sometimes, often in a situation as well, you've only got 5 minutes, to get what you need to get. So you've sort of just got to you've got to let your logical brain overtake you and get on with it. Yeah. Really.
But I mean, so many of the Coronation Street cast are just lovely, aren't they? And I've been lucky enough to chat to many of them in my time doing the podcast, and they're always so easy to talk to.
Yeah, they're all great. I mean, they're all and they're all true pros. I think it's because of the nature of that job. I think you can't be difficult. There's no time for difficultness in that job. You've got to come on and be able to do it and do it well, and there's a lot. It's long hours, so I think everyone kind of knows how to keep themselves going, really. But they're all really, really, really nice, Jim. I've never met a bad one, I must say, actually. Or maybe the bad ones we just never get to meet. That's always my suspicion.
So
if they don't stick them on the phone, I'm always like, what's wrong with them?
So now you're no longer on Inside Soap. Are you continuing to keep up with, what's going on in Weatherfield and Walford and so on, or are you having a bit of a break?
No, definitely. I'm actually probably watching more soaps than I did when I actually used to be the editor of Inside Soap, to be honest. And yes, I am. I mean, as I said, I've always been a fan. That's the thing. I always will be a fan. And I'm so invested in them now, it's just sort of, so I'm quite enjoying watching them. I'm quite enjoying not quite being so. I mean, I've been doing freelance work at various places, so I have been doing quite a bit of soap stuff, but not to the in-depthness every week that I do it.
No.
So it's been quite nice to not quite be so fully up on it. I know broadly what's happening, but not quite know every single story beat, which is kind of what you ended up doing by the time you finish an issue of Inside Soap. So it's been quite nice to just not quite to be so deep dived in and be able to sit back a little bit. And enjoy it.
So have you got anything else like big lined up in the pipeline work-wise?
No, I'm having a little rest. I've got bits and pieces that I'm doing, enough to get me up in the morning, enough to make me remember to get up. And I'm really happy I'm still doing soap stuff, because that's quite nice. That's quite nice. I think I went completely cold turkey. I might have a small nervous breakdown, so it's quite nice that I'm still involved in that world a little bit, doing some bits and bobs. So it's nice. I'm just having a little bit of a rest, and then I might relaunch myself into the world next year. Who knows? But for the minute, I'm quite happy to see what happens.
Well, it sounds like after 25 years, you've earned a bit of a break, to be fair.
Yeah, that's what I reckon. I reckon I can see it out till after Christmas.
Yeah.
And then I might have a little think. But yeah, I'm quite enjoying it. I'm quite enjoying the lack of responsibility. Actually, I really thought the first week I wasn't there, I'd be thinking every day, will they be doing this now? No, I wonder what's going on with this.
Yeah.
Didn't give it a second thought. I was so knackered. I mean, bless them. I love them all very, very dearly. They're all very good friends of mine. But I was just like, just get on with it. I'm having a little rest now. It's fine.
Absolutely.
So it's nice. It's very nice.
Well, Stephen, it's been really, really lovely chatting to you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for coming on, and so many great stories. And best of luck for whatever does come your way in the future.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Mike.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.